All right, we're back at the Cracks in Postmodernity. Today we have Jack from the Book Club from Hell podcast. He also has a forthcoming book coming out in October. I went on the podcast twice. We talked about Zizek. We talked about the regime of the brother. So we're very excited to have you on Cracks in Postmodernity. So thanks for coming, Jack.
Thanks very much for having me on. I've been listening for a while, so it's fun to chat to you on your podcast now.
Yeah, no, and I really enjoyed our discussions on your podcast. I enjoyed the opportunity to kind of just do a deep dive into some of the books and topics I've been interested in. But in this podcast, I want to talk about books in general, which is the main focus of your podcast. So I mean, let's start with this. I mean, why did you decide to start a podcast focused on doing deep dives in books?
So yeah, for a bit of background for listeners who don't know anything about Book Club from Hell, it was started during COVID. It was an algal bloom of podcasts started by friends who wanted to remain in contact during COVID, and ours is no different. And we decided we would podcast about books, but the books would be the sort of books that people might be morbidly interested in, but we're also absolutely not willing to read. For example, have just recorded an episode on Adolf Hitler, The Last Avatar by Miguel Serrano, which is a 600-page work of absolute insanity, but rendered quite lucidly. He blends together Hitler. He was a big fan of Hitler, but
Hmm.
also Kundalini yoga, UFOs, every Northern European myth you can possibly imagine, Nordic runes, just talking about searching for gnomes in the Andes as a portal to Agartha. That kind of book. Um, we've been doing it for a few years. Over time, we have expanded the sort of book we would consider covering because we both go absolutely insane if the only books we were to read were things that are make your head spin to the extent that Serrano's works do. So that's a bit of background.
Hmm.
As to why we started it, mostly we started it because we wanted to do something together, and we both read a lot of books, and we didn't think so much about the trends of fewer people reading or fewer people reading for less time than they did previously. That was less
Mhm.
of a consideration. As time's gone on, um, maybe more to that point, I've continued doing it because I like talking to people about books, and there aren't that many people in my day-to-day life or my offline life with whom I can talk at length about a novel I've really liked or some weirdo book of philosophy I've liked or even something like say Baudrillard. It's fun being able to dig up people on the internet who will actually understand if you bring up Baudrillard and especially with reference to something like social media or the internet, which he didn't. I'm not sure he directly experienced, but which would have absolutely blown his mind.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so maybe in short to that question, why I continue to do it is in part just a perverse, perhaps, tendency to masochism
Mhm.
with some of these books, and I just like talking about books, and it's quite hard to find these sorts of people with whom to talk about books
Yeah.
without having a podcast where I just invite people on.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to get into the question of like declining readership and attention spans in a moment, but I do want to ask you a little bit more about your own relationship with books or maybe your history with books. I mean, have you always been an avid reader? Is it something that developed over time? I mean, how would you characterize your own story?
Yeah, always. Well, I was a very avid reader as a child and a teenager. When I went to university, I got very focused on like I'm not going to have distractions from my the specific technicalities of my degree. If this is not going to help me get a job or be really really good as the professional I'm training to be, I'm not interested. And I narrowed a lot. And it was after a few years that I realized it did feel like a large part of myself was missing, in that I still thought of myself as someone who read a lot until I realized, well, actually, no, I don't, beyond textbooks and journal articles. And so I did make a conscious effort then to read things that weren't directly related to my degree or my work, which was really important. I mean, it's specialization in terms of technical mastery of what you need to do in your job can be really helpful. But I and a number of my friends were left feeling very, very hollow from trying to narrow ourselves to that extent. And so I think returning to the reading of my childhood and teenage years really, really helped with that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I when I think back for me, like the school that I was in, a public school where I guess the state mandated certain, I don't know, like certain programming with trying to get kids to read. So like for example, you would have your reading log and you would put how many minutes that you read every day. And if you read a
Hmm.
certain amount of minutes every day for a month, then they gave you like a coupon to get a free slice of pizza at Pizza Hut or something dumb like that.
Hmm.
Which it worked somehow. Like it started, it like developed a habit in me. But I think what really hooked me, I have to say it was Harry Potter, as much as it's cringe to
Yeah,
say. But
yeah,
like
yeah.
the fact that, okay, like for now that I'm old, I do think Harry Potter's cringe, and I don't think J.K. Rowling is all that. I mean, that's a different story. But the fact that like she creates this world, this fantasy world where like, you feel like while you're reading. Yeah, like you're entering into this other realm, and the fact that there's a fandom surrounding it, and everybody's going at midnight to line up to buy the book, like you want to be part of it, and you want to be the first to finish the book. So I feel like that's what kind of really sparked in me the love for reading. And I don't know, like I read voraciously up until I think it was 10th grade when Facebook came out, and I remember like social media destroyed my love of reading. Like to the point that, I would buy all these books and I would try to start reading it and I just couldn't get past a couple pages. And it wasn't until I got my first full-time job that I like erased all my social media and then I found I was able to read again. But anyway, like I think what got me reading and what keeps me reading now is, I mean, now it's part of my job, but more than anything, yeah, like I feel like reading opens up. It opens reality up, especially sure,
Hmm.
like with fiction, you go into another realm and it makes you use your imagination. But even reading nonfiction, like I just feel like it makes your experience of reality more full, for lack of a better term. But I don't know. I mean, for you, how would you like, what is it that keeps you reading? Like, yeah, I know that like, okay, like you enjoy doing these deep dives, these discussions in your podcast, but like, what does it mean for you on that personal level?
I think it's so. I think you're talking about how it broadens things is right, and a lot of it.
Yeah.
So, okay, an example is say one of the books we did for the podcast actually that led me to pursue someone's broader oeuvre was we did the first part of The Accursed Share by Georges Bataille.
Mhm.
And that was the sort of book that made me want to read a lot more of Bataille because I'd, I don't even know if I agree with a bunch of his central premises in that book, but it's it's this work where he has a theory that's at the same time just from its beginning seems kind of bonkers. It's well, what if our economic system is not defined by limited resources, but actually just a pure excess
Mm.
of resources? And then he thinks it through quite lucidly, adding in all sorts of weirdness that makes it all the more delightful. And to be able to read something that someone's written down and then be able to inhabit, if not their entire subjectivity, then enough of it to kind of like put on your Bataille glasses and look at the world and slip in and out of different perspectives like that
Yes.
that you've reconstructed from someone's writing is so much fun. And look, I don't know to what extent this sense of fun is experienced by most people, but I really try to encourage people to read something enough that they're able to experience that for the first time and hopefully try to
Yeah.
get them hooked on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what drew me to fiction as a kid, that, because it's precisely this, it changes your perception of reality. So
Mm,
something as mundane as eating a sandwich or walking down the street, like
mm,
a novelist can turn it into something enchanted, something magical in a way. And the more you
mm,
read, like the more your experience of the mundane starts to take on the trappings of something mystical or enchanting. But also with nonfiction, as you're saying, like I find, obviously I quote Camille Paglia on every other thing I write. But it's
yeah.
because like she's really formed me to perceive things through a different lens. Like I watch movies in a completely different light because of reading her. The same
Hmm.
with people like Baudrillard. I just commissioned someone to write an article about reading Baudrillard while shopping at a supermarket, because now when I go to a supermarket, I can't help but think of him and how it
Hmm.
just all feels like a big simulation. But anyway, so I mean, I don't know. Like I think it's the fact that reading enhances my experience of reality that keeps me reading. Yeah, as much
Hmm.
as, there are all these different things competing for my attention other than books. But I mean, I do want to get into this topic though, that like obviously, yeah, people are not reading books as much as they used to. People are spending a lot of time on screens. Um, I don't know. I'm interested to hear. Let's start with your own experience. I mean, obviously, you're someone who is online. You host a podcast. How did you navigate like all these things competing for your attention? Like, how do you manage to make the time to read in a time when it's becoming really hard to focus one's attention on something like a book?
It is harder, although I would say if something's important to you, you do make time for it. But in terms of online stuff, I just use cold turkey blocker. That's I think that's the main thing that frees up time from social media. If people listening haven't got it, I highly recommend it. Absolutely
Mm,
fantastic application that basically just lets you set timed blocks of particular websites or make it
mm,
slightly more annoying to access certain websites. So for Twitter, I have to type out just a bunch of random words to access it. And just that little bit
okay.
of friction makes me not log on nearly as much. I might log on now 5 to 10% as much as I might have previously because it's enough
Interesting.
time that makes you stop and think, actually, I'm just wasting my time doing this. Like, I'm just going to scroll. I'll probably just see a bunch of people like get run over or something like that without wanting to see that happen. And I'll have just lost half an hour of my life. So that's very helpful. Having some sort of accountability has really helped too, like with the podcast, in that I'm going to have to talk about a particular book for 2.5 hours
Yeah.
to someone else. That is really good if you've scheduled books you want to read. If you're scheduling, I don't know, Elliot Rodgers' Manifesto,
Mm.
it'll make you read that. But uh, the accountability, I guess, is only so good as the book you're accountable for reading. And then also, I think just reading as a skill, which I think
Mm.
is maybe it's underappreciated, at least in the people I've talked to in my day-to-day life. I think it's underappreciated that reading's a skill you can be better or worse at. As with any skill, you can practice it
Mm.
and improve at it. The more you do it, the easier it is to sit down and read without getting distracted. And it
Yeah.
unlocks all of this extra stuff that you might not have been able to read before because it would have been too boring or too dry, or you would have been too easily distracted, or you would have come up with reasons as to why you're not going to read it now.
But was there ever a point where you would say like you were actually addicted to screens or to social media to the point that like you weren't reading as much as you'd like to?
No, fortunately, it was
Wow.
so it was like you were saying earlier, how it was when you were 15 or so that Facebook appeared and that ate into your reading. So that never really happened to me. I think I'm lucky in that my primary feeling when I interact with social media is disgust. uh,
You
which
don't
is,
find any of it fascinating?
yeah, I'm mostly just grateful that, for whatever organismic reason, I just feel a similar feeling as when I see rotten food. I, I just
Wow.
I find a lot of social media very unpleasant and quite unappealing. It's really good. It's really great for things like this, and I'm grateful that it exists, that I'm able to get in contact with people like you or the other people who've come on the show. That's
Yeah.
really great, and I have been able to meet some people whom I really, really like through social media. But and it's probably eras of social media and the refinement of social media technique too, in that old school Facebook, because I imagine we're very similar ages, where you actually were just seeing photos your friends took of each other passed out drunk at a party
Mm.
was fine. I don't really have any problem with that. But say the algorithmic feed makes me feel like I'm locked into the most mundane Skinner box imaginable so that someone can eke
Mm.
like a few extra fractions of a cent of advertising revenue for me. And I just respond to that with a sense of disgust. Not only that it's happening, but that I'm so
Uh,
captive to it when I start scrolling.
I mean, I think social media, when I first discovered it, is much more interesting now than then. Because back then, okay,
Mm,
on Facebook, MySpace, you just post a picture or your status or whatever, and it wasn't, I don't know, like there's no substance to it. Now, like I think, I don't know, like I find on top of finding a lot of it to be like genuinely humorous, there's just so much like you can really read into the culture and into like humanity in general, looking at the memes and the tweets. Like, yeah, there's plenty of garbage and terrible stuff, but like, I don't know, I happen to find it fascinating. But
yeah. I
anyway,
think you
no,
can read
I'm
into an aspect of humanity, sort of the aspect of humanity that's
but that's why I love
representable in
memes.
social media.
But memes are able to capture something about human experience that nothing else can. And sure, it's a cheap way of communicating what you're trying to get across, but like I just feel like I don't know. Maybe I'm too I don't know, my brain is fried. But
I don't know. Look, clearly a lot of people get a lot out of social media. I just don't happen to. So I mean, in answer to your question, I've never felt it really interfere with my reading too
okay.
much.
Wow.
Or
No,
more
I
when I do feel it
yeah,
stealing my attention away, I'll take steps to just make it very, very difficult to access.
yeah. Hmm. Because when I think back to again, like high school, getting on Facebook, and when I stopped reading, yeah, like it totally altered my experience of reality. Not just my capacity to pay attention, but again, this sense that I don't know, like when I'm reading a book, there's something paradoxical about the fact that like the thing in front of you that you're engaging with is limited. Like you have the words on the
Mm,
text. You can't just keep scrolling and searching new things. And it's the limitation that like is kind of there's something promising, there's something hopeful about it because it forces you to use your imagination to
mm,
contemplate the nature of whether it's a fictional story you're reading or whether it's nonfiction, whatever the topic is, like that like impetus to use your imagination and contemplate
hmm
is extremely, again, there's something promising. Like it opens the door to something greater. Whereas with social media, it's a closed door. It's like the fact that I could search for anything else and I could keep scrolling is, again, paradoxically a dead end. And I saw how yeah, like it changed the way that I lived. It made me less excited. It made me feel like I don't know, like I didn't expect as much from real everyday life as when I was
mm,
reading. So I don't know, like now that yes, like I'm very much online, I do doom scroll a little too much, but yeah, I mean, I've managed to find a balance for like, yeah, I do read every day. Sure, I could read more, sure I could doom scroll less, but I don't know, like I find that I'm so much happier and more excited about life when
mm.
I'm reading. But I don't know, but like then I'm curious like the people that you're around, the people that you know. I mean, do you find that majority of people that you know are reading books regularly, what would you say?
Depends on so fiction.
Any
It'll
book,
be
actual
yeah.
book.
Oh, books. Yeah, like people look at reference texts, although most of those are electronic now. Um, yeah, maybe just technical texts if the computer system at work has shat itself and they
Hmm,
really need to find something out. Romantasy is pretty popular.
really?
Yeah. People are certainly reading. It just tends to be things I'm not particularly interested in. But there's definitely a market for romantasy.
Romantasy as
And
in like chick lit or like
yeah, like
dime
click lit,
novels? Like what kind?
like like edging up to a sex scene in various
Oh,
permutations.
okay. It's not really literature, but yeah, I mean, because I don't know, when I think about the people I know, yeah, I would say most of the, I don't know, in my age group, in our age group, I would say a good amount read fairly regularly, definitely not everyone. Younger people that I know do not read at all. And like I'll recommend them books and and I'll even give them books. They can't do it. And yeah, I mean, I do think it's social media. Um, it seems to me that they don't have the attention span to do it. I don't know if you observe anything about like younger generations, but I think, yeah, the attention span shot.
I think a lot of my contact with people, say in their early 20s, will be through the podcast, and it's self-selecting in that they're people who
Mm.
are reading or at least interested in having me read and then regurgitate what I've read into their mouth like a bird. So they're already interested in books to that extent. So it's a really
Mhm.
biased sample. There's a there's a big gap because in terms of the age of people I interact with, because there'll be people my age, my parents' age, and then like my kids' age. So I've got a bit of a hole when it comes to interacting with Zoomers.
Because I mean,
Maybe
most,
that might be part of why I'm more optimistic about it. I see a lot of
okay.
pessimism about younger people not reading, and
Hmm.
maybe it's just I'm not interacting enough with younger people who aren't reading.
Yeah, because most of the Zoomers I know are former students and like, yeah, they just don't. They send me reels all the time. They send me TikToks, which I never watch, but yeah, I don't know. And that raises the question of like, you know, reading in the classroom and in an educational context because, so there are all these articles coming out about what to do with the fact that kids don't read. You give them an assignment, they go into ChatGPT and get, the summary, use it to do assignments. For me, like I've had to face this question because I teach freshmen and sophomores in college and undergrad. And before that, I taught high school kids. And yeah, they don't read. And it's part of it's laziness, part of it's because again, like they rather be watching reels, engaging with something that gives them an instant kind of, instant gratification. But I see that a lot of them just really don't know how to engage a complicated text. I
Mm,
think I see a lot of them are intimidated. Like, when I assign Socrates, they see, you know, this really old text and they're like, I don't know how to break down something written that long ago and that complicated. And I'm like, okay, but what did you get out of it? Like, if you start with what did you get out of it, and then can you like mark the parts that were really confusing, and then we can talk about that. It's like that, just doing that alone is intimidating to them. And I think it's
mm,
because I don't think anyone's taught them how to engage with something that's complicated or challenging to them. And so it's like there's a certain level of intimidation on top of the laziness. But I don't know. For me, because the class I teach is a core requirement, so like they all have to do it. It's not, most of them are not going to be majors in the topic. I do try to compromise. Like I do try to pick the most essential parts of a text rather than assigning the whole thing. And I try to go really deep into it because I don't know, like because it's a core class, I want them to leave the class taking away something that's I don't know, like taking away something that's really interesting that they can use in the rest of their classes or in the rest of their life. It doesn't matter to me that they know every single thing Socrates said in the Apology. Um, if I taught classes to majors, then yeah, I would probably be a little bit more rigorous about reading the whole text. But, I just, so I'm one of these people where I'm like, meet them where they're at and maybe
Mm,
leave it to another professor to challenge them more. But I think what's more important than forcing the kids to read is igniting a fascination in
mhm.
anything, in learning in general. Like,
Yeah.
because if you really inculcate that desire to learn and that fascination with the subject, that's going to spur you to read the whole text at a certain point. Whereas if you just like, oh, well, you better read the whole thing, so I'm going to quiz you on the whole thing, it's like, then what? Then there's no intrinsic motivation.
Hmm.
So I don't know. That's my hot take on it. I don't know if you have thoughts on education,
Yeah.
reading in the educational context.
Yeah, there are a bunch of directions you could go from there. Yeah, because if someone's motivation to read is ultimately just, well, I don't want the teacher to get angry with me, that's not a particularly durable motivation. And especially if you hit them with something really difficult. If you have someone who's completely unused to sitting down and reading and just tell them, well, you're going to read the Republic now. It's like asking them to go from zero to deadlifting 250 kilos
Yeah.
straight up. It's probably not going to work. Yeah, yeah. How do you get someone interested in a book? Because I'm not sure there's anything fundamentally special about the mode of information transmission that is a book. Um, Compared to say, oh, actually, having said that, I think that the written word compared to an oral tradition does change how you think quite dramatically. So there's something special in that. But
Hmm.
a book versus some other written form. But a nice thing about books is it's a nice compromise between, say, having to memorize things. I forget which text of Plato it was where Socrates was complaining that reading things rather than memorizing them was degrading the minds of the youth. I think it was the Phaedro,
Well,
but
that's why he didn't write anything.
yeah, yeah, I could be
Plato
wrong.
did it for him.
Yeah, lucky he had Plato following him around and and notating what he said. But it's a nice balance between that and then I don't know, like very, very fragmented, high velocity sound bites where I find I don't retain anything, but it's very, very immediately, um, it grabs your attention in a very immediate way. Books are nice because they're quite stupid in that they don't progress unless you're reading them. They're
Yeah.
quiet. They don't try to suggest anything to you that is not explicitly written in there and that is not your own particular misreading of that text. So they have a nice series of compromises that I think make them quite special, but also make them things that you actually need to practice engaging with.
Hmm.
Because yes, they're designed with I guess you could call it a particular user experience and user interface in mind. That's quite nice, but it's not optimized in the same way that say TikTok is for
Yeah.
for grabbing your attention. So yeah, in a pedagogical sense, how do you train someone into being able to interact with the book in a way that they find engaging and want to continue doing is quite a hard question.
But that's the thing. Something I keep seeing is that there are kids who are intellectually curious, but who channel it into watching TikTok reels all
Mm,
day. Like intellectual reels, whether it's about politics or history or philosophy. So like I have kids who will, start going on tangents about whatever thing they heard on a reel. And I'm happy that they're taking the time to do deep dives into whatever subject, but it's completely undisciplined. Like it's you just keep watching one reel after another, and there's no kind of like
mm,
trajectory. There's no path to follow to enter into a deeper understanding. And also, a lot of TikTokers are pulling stuff out of their ass. Like how they're not real authorities on these things.
Well, they're just
So
like real authors.
yeah, well, but that's my concern though. It's like there are people, there are kids who are intellectually curious, but
Mm,
again, they're engaging that curiosity in a way that's completely undisciplined. And that's how I see a lot of kids like ending up with kind of extremist political ideologies because it's again,
mm,
it's like they just follow these outlandish accounts and don't have to like sit there and reason with something. Um, so I don't know, like how do you actually get them to like sit down and read an actual book and contend with the various ideas being explained? It's hard. Like I've tried to say, like I've tried to, when I have a kid like that, I'll be like, "Hey, check out this book. I think, it's really going to be up your
yeah,
alley."
it's
Most of them don't read
Revolt
it.
Against the Modern World by Julius Evola. I think you
Yeah.
really like it.
That's
It is
yeah,
interesting talking about the extremist stuff because through the podcast and just through my own interests, I've read a bunch of that stuff. Like I've probably read way more Evola or Dugan
really.
Organon than most like most chuds. Most people online who like self-describe as being politically very radical or something. Um,
Yeah.
and the advantage of reading them in a book is that it's quite slow and it gives you enough time to really think about what a person's saying and what about it's interesting because I won't say I dislike reading Evola, but at the same time it does let you ask a question like when Evola's talking about the astrological justifications for a caste-based society, it lets you after a while go, okay, yeah, but why? Why are you saying this? Why is this how we should organize all of our societies? Which is salutary to be able to have the space and time and not be bothered by constant audiovisual stimulation to ask why. And I think
Mm.
maybe that's probably a big advantage that books have over, say, the person who's really interested in political TikToks or philosophical TikToks or whatever else is there. Because if it's if it's anything like my experience, I have a really hard time learning by just listening to stuff or watching videos on things because
Mm.
my brain doesn't work that quickly. I need to stop and think about something to properly absorb it. And a book's good for that because, like I said earlier, when you stop reading, the book doesn't continue like a video. It stops with you.
But that's
So,
interesting what you're saying about reading books that you may not necessarily agree with,
mm,
because yeah, I mean I've had that experience of reading something that again, like politically, I'm definitely not aligned with. And it can be really fascinating because you, as you're saying, you have to take the time and sit there and really think about, okay, like what are they saying? Why are they saying this? Why don't I agree? But I see their point, and I think, certain things they're saying are valid, even though ultimately I don't agree. I don't come to the same conclusion. You don't have the space to do that with the TikTok. Like you see
mm,
somebody who in 60 seconds or less espouses their heinous opinion, and then you're just enraged and you
mhm.
determine, okay, these people are idiotic, they're stupid. Uh, I'm right, they're wrong. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think I have the freedom to like assign outrageous books in class, like teach kids how to do that. I don't want to lose my job,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, it's a healthy because like I've read books of all, yeah, I don't know. Like now you're making me think about books that I really disagree with the conclusion, but I still have a certain level of respect because it's like, okay, I see where you're coming from. I see what you're trying to do, but
Mm.
and it allows me to appreciate people who espouse that belief, whatever. Do you have a favorite book that you like strongly disagreed with, but like really enjoyed reading?
Well, it was like bringing up Evelyn. Like Revolt Against the Modern
Oh,
World is a real
yeah.
meme book, but in part because I think almost everybody who talks about it online has never read it.
Hmm.
Evola had a great knack for coming up with incredible book titles like Revolt Against the Modern World, Men Among the Ruins, The Path to Cinnabar, Handbook for Right-Wing Youth, Fascism as Viewed from the Right. Just things that make it sound like the book is going to be hyper inflammatory, really in your face. And to an extent, I mean, yeah, if you take Evola seriously, the stuff he says is just so incredibly counter to basically anything that most people would agree with today in the West. But what most people who claim to have read Evola miss is just how incredibly autistic most of it is. Most of it is him obsessing over like just the particularities of yoga or getting angry with other authors who have been talking about Hinduism as like not
Mm.
correctly separating out the particular roles of like the priestly and warrior castes.
Okay.
But the book that his books are great fun because they're this incredible, very rare but very special intersection between very lucid in that he was a very erudite man, really smart, and his beliefs were just fucking insane. Some
Yeah.
of them, like he's got this long section in Revolt Against the Modern World, not only defending the practice of sati, so that where one's widow throws herself on the funeral pyre of her dead husband, but saying no, no, actually this is not only good,
Mm.
but helps retain the spiritual structure of
Yeah.
the world of becoming as projected from the world of being. And reading someone who's thought really deeply about this, done a lot of research, is able to argue in a very logical way for just completely bonkers conclusions
Mm.
is something that I find really enjoyable. Like I said earlier, if a book gives me the ability to put on the Evola goggles and look at the world, I really value that. That's great. I'm going to recommend that book to at
Mm.
least a small number of people that I
Yeah.
think can deal with reading that sort of thing. Anyway, I kind of forgot the question. Oh
Interesting.
no, a book of that I'd
Yeah.
recommend. Yeah, like
Outrageous.
something by Evel is good.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll try. Um, the most recent book I disagreed with that I enjoyed was Colonialism by Nigel Bigar, I think his name is.
Hmm.
It came out, I think, like 2 or 3 years ago. And it's his case for why colonialism's not that bad.
Hmm.
And I don't agree with his conclusions, but I thought it was a very strong argument. And that I don't know, like I'm not one of these radical post-colonialists, whatever, but I think those types of people need to read this so that they can understand, like, so they can understand the holes in their own point of view. And it was just enjoyable because it was a very measured, like, well articulated argument. And it made me think about how, like, yeah, when I'm trying to argue for whatever my point of view is, how it's important to kind of, yeah, I don't know. Like it was fun to read and I learned a lot from it. But even, I don't know, like people who I think are totally outlandish, like Judith Butler, like,
Hmm.
I mean, her writing is really labyrinthine and hard to enter into. But
Yeah.
once you get it, it's like, okay, you're insane. What you're arguing is insane, but it's totally fascinating. Like I mean, she's a Lacanian of sorts, right?
So
Kind
I've never gone deep enough because I've hit the
from,
pros and gone,
yeah,
it'll take time to just acclimatize to this, maybe later. And I've never gone into it.
it's a
Even
lot.
though like the prose is not more crazy than some other people's books that I've read. It's
I mean, I would say Foucault is much easier than her, but
I found her prose from the so I've never read a full book of hers, but I found it much easier than say Deleuze and Guattari
okay.
or Guattari by himself, which is Chaosmosis is a special experience.
Mm. Yeah,
So
so I don't know.
I should give it a shot.
I mean, it takes a lot of energy out of you, but once you get there, like you see, the woman's definitely onto something. Like she's completely insane, but I think the earlier texts, there's something there. I mean, gender
You're actually
trouble, it's like, okay,
you're
she
really
has a
selling this to
project.
me now. You're making me this is the advertisement for Judith Butler that I needed to
All
hear.
right, so give it a try.
Insane but worthwhile is exactly what I want.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like her as a human being, but she's definitely smart, very smart. Yeah, so okay. Oh, this is the other thing I wanted to ask you. Kindles or e-readers, are they anathema or are they
No, it's
acceptable?
fine.
Really?
Um,
Are you
yeah,
sure?
but look, I'm enough of a I'm sort of paranoid enough that I worry, oh, what if they can just go in and change something in an EPUB I've got on my Kindle? which is much harder to do with a print book. But no, on the whole, like it's good. It's really convenient.
But don't you like to touch the book,
I much
like hold
prefer it,
it?
but I also like having space where I live.
Oh, I love
And
being surrounded by numerous books. It makes me feel very safe. I don't know.
yeah, we've had conversations at home because we run out of bookshelf space a lot. I've got a lot of shelves I bought from Hornbach, which is like the local um, hardware store, because it's just easier to buy a bunch of those than buying new
Mm.
bookcases. But we're still running out of space, so it is actually a
Hmm.
problem for me. Electronic texts are very very practical.
Well, okay, so here's a question I posted on X last week. How much time do you think someone will spend in purgatory for throwing a book in the garbage? Or what level of hell will they go to for throwing a book in the garbage?
It depends on the book. I think in
Yeah,
some of
that's
them
what
it
everyone
could.
kept saying.
Yeah, you could have time taken off for some books.
I don't think books should ever be thrown in the garbage. I just think it's a sin in itself. I don't know. I don't,
Yeah, I'm not.
because
I'm not
someone could
sure.
read it. Unless it's, I mean, truly evil book, then you burn it. You don't throw it out. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it depends how evil the book. If it's still in that sweet spot of insane but very lucid, I'll still
Hmm.
probably read it. Um,
Okay.
if you're good, you
Because
can have a little bit of heresy as a treat.
Well, because I've like become what I call a book Robin Hood of sorts because I worked at an
You
institution
dumpster
where,
diving, saving books.
well, yeah, no, because there's where I used to work, they had a huge library, which no one was reading anything, and they were starting to throw them in the garbage. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go through and take as many as I can so that they don't end up in the garbage. And it was, I mean, like their whole cleanup process took several years, so it wasn't like all at once. But honestly, I think over 1,000 books from them, and they're
That's
all
so
piled
cool.
up. And but then I give them away. So like if I have a friend come over, I'm like, hey, take a look at the shelf. If there are any that you want, take them home. And people have taken over 100 books probably. But I do maybe part of it is like my hoarder thing, but I do feel a moral kind of obligation to save books from being thrown in the trash because, one day you might read them or one day you might give them to a friend. And
Yeah,
um,
or the idea that maybe there aren't that many of those particular editions left, and if someone sat down and tried to transmit their subjectivity in, however incomplete rendering one's subjectivity into language might be, there's still a sliver of someone else's perspective on the same central secret that we're all orbiting around and all also part of that could be lost. And
yeah.
I really don't like that you could lose that perspective forever. That's possible.
Hmm. So, I mean, let's say somebody's listening right now who is addicted to their phone, to their screens, who don't read full books at all, but they really want to start. Where should they start? What book are you going to recommend to them?
Oh, what book? Maybe that's more. What are they interested in? I mean, especially
Yeah.
if you just haven't read anything. Just start with what you're interested in. It's like when people ask, "Oh,
Hmm.
I want to listen to classical music," just like blanket. It's well, what do you like to listen to? Yeah, I'm not going to recommend you listen to the entire Ring cycle over and over again until you get it, because that's probably going to drive someone away. And it's probably similar with books. Just pick something you find interesting. You find interesting. If you just are not reading at all, yeah, read like an airplane novel or a romantasy or whatever, just page turner if it gets you interested.
Yeah.
If you're one of those internet creatures who just loves political extremism, then yeah, whatever, pick up some Fanon or pick up Spengler. Spengler might be a bad place to start, but if you're hyper autistic, then maybe that's the go. Just pick something you're interested in. Buy Cold Turkey Blocker on your computer. Make it. I think they have a version for phones as well. It would surprise me if they didn't. make it much more difficult to access social media and find something you want to read. Set aside time. Just say, okay, today I'm going to read for 15 minutes. Um, Set the same time each day. Maybe do 15 minutes before bed, I guess. Just little things, really basic things like that. I don't think there needs to be, here's the book that you're going to read that's going to convince you
Yeah.
to be a capital R reader from now on.
All right. So start somewhere
Yeah.
and see
Just
where it
start where
goes.
it's like the gym. I know you're a huge fan of people spending a lot of time in the gym getting huge bulbous muscles. It's just like that. You know, don't go in there and stack 6 plates onto the bar and try to squat it. You'll snap your spine in half. You'll be injured in a similarly gratuitous way if you try reading
True.
a book that's above your abilities straight away.
That is true. Okay, so so people should absolutely check out Book Club from Hell. They should listen to the episodes we did, to all the
Yeah.
episodes. And you said you have a forthcoming book in the fall.
Yeah, got a book coming out called Audience Capture in October with Bonfire Books, a publisher in Victoria, Australia, who's published some really, really great novels and short story collections. If people are regularly reading and want more things to read. And yeah, more details on my work the best place to find it is probably on social media on either x.com or Substack. Just look for Book Club from Hell. You can find everything there. Look for Book Club from Hell on your podcast distribution platform of choice.
And Jack, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's fun. All right.